your body is 70+% water. The word for water in Kamit on the masculine side is mu, on the feminine side is mut. This is mut. There's a triad called Amen, Mut, and Khensu, but Mut means water. She's the one that governs the great primordial ocean, as well as the ocean around the earth and so forth. That is Mut, the great mother. The water in your body, Mut, is the water and so forth. Just like you have water throughout your entire system, there's a primordial force of water permeating creation, the moisture and so forth, and the oceans and everything else. That's the great mother Mut. So you have Neit, the wave energy within the black substance of space. The black substance of space is Kayet, and Neit is the wave energy on the feminine side of the black substance. You have Mut, which is the water, just like the water in your body, but water is a conductor of electricity. And there's a wave energy within water, just like there's a wave energy within the black substance in melanin. The wave energetic force within the black substance is Neit. And as we saw, her name is spelled with the wave line. The wave energy within water, the water in your body, in your blood cells and so forth, and your blood vessels, is Neith. She's the wave energy within water, within Mut, just like Neit is the wave energy within the black substance, within melanin, within the black substance. Those are two different forms of wave energy. And then you have Nut, who's the atmosphere. You see her bent over the earth, which is Geb, the earth's crust laying on the ground. That is simply Geb's the earth's crust, and Nut is the atmosphere surrounding the planet. So when you see Nut bent over the earth's crust and so forth, and sometimes you see the stars in her body, that is simply the atmosphere surrounding the planet. That is Nut, and Geb is, her counterpart, the earth's crust in the sky. That Nut is a grandchild of this Neit. So you have the great mother, Amenet. You have the black substance of space, which is Ka and Kayet. You have the wave energy within the black substance of space, which is Neit. You have the water that permeates all of creation, that permeates the entire planet and so forth, and permeates 70+% of your body. That is Mut, and that water is a conductor of electricity as well. And that electromagnetic force within water is Neith. But Nut is the atmosphere surrounding the planet. So we wanted to show that when you talk about Amen and Amenet and Ra and Raed and Atem and Atemet, and then Atem and Atemet give birth to Shu and Tefnut, and Shu and Tefnut give birth to Geb and Nut, and Geb and Nut, earth and sky, give birth to Asar, Aset, Set, and Nebuhet. That is a pedigree. So you have Asar, Set, Set, and Nebuhet. Their parents are Geb and Nut. Geb and Nut's parents are Shu and Tefnut. Shu and Tefnut's parents are Atem and Atemet. Atem and Atemet's parents are Ra and Raed and so forth. So when you look at that, you'll see that Nut, the sky mother divinity, she's a great, 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 great grandchild of Amenet. There's a difference between this Nut and this Neit or Nunet, and sometimes she's called Nut as well. Two different divinities. But we need to show that there's a difference between these female divinities. Now we look at her forms. Let's read from the text of Esna. Esna is a temple of Kunwimu and Neit in the central region of Kamit. And they're talking about the king, they're talking about the divinities and so forth. But then you get into the text talking about Neit. You are the Lady of Victory on the day of combat, who seizes the bow, pulls out the arrows, and overwhelms rebel troops. So she's the great archeress killer. Her strength is great over the 9 bows, talking about the 9 nations of Sudan and Nubia, and the lands fall before her power. She who takes whomever she desires as ruler for all eternity, as the falcon atop the sacred Zodiac symbol and so forth. You are the Lady of Heaven, Earth, waters and mountains, whose prestige is elevated among them. You are the lady of the palace, who protects the king, who guards his army, who watches over the two lands and all foreign lands in their entirety. The great Ntorot, before all gods and goddesses, the living Khanit, snake, who protects his land. The king receives her in jubilation as a supporter of her ka, or soul. She who was confirmed by Tatanen to be lady of millions alongside the falcon of gold, meaning Heru of gold and so forth, namely the deity with his daughter. You are she under whose authority the king appears in glory. Every decree is issued before her. None enters the palace in her ignorance. You are the lady of the quarry, mistress of bracelets, lady of the eastern desert, mistress of Puanit, which is the southern land, into Eritrea and so forth. She for whom the Hoot Bitsi is flooded with her scent as drops of fresh myrrh upon the locks of her hair. Her body is distinguished with the white crown, lady of Heh and Amu, for whom Esderen was made, lady of Rashed and Tefrer. She created all precious stones in order to make all works, lady of Netchem, Ankh mineral, mistress of lapis lazuli, turquoise, and jasper. And so they have a number of different praises for Neit. And they, they go on with the different praises and her different attributes and so forth. Now, let's look at some more detailed information about how the whites and offspring flipped her from, she's the original Archeress, and then they're going to flip it to a male divinity. Okay, so we put this document together because we were showing some information about the gold and the female gold, and we talked a little bit in the first piece about how they flipped the ram to a goat and so forth. The Greeks did that, so we had two great ram divinities, and they turned them into goats and so forth, Capricorn, and well, they had the ram of quote-unquote Mendes or Banabjedet. They started calling him a goat, and then they started calling Kunwimu a goat as well. But so we went into some detail about that in this piece, but it's directly related to Neith. So the term goat was originally a feminine noun. Male goats were called buka or buck. Thus, if one was trying to determine who was the goat, technically they should have, been looking for a female. So we were showing that originally the term goat is a feminine noun. Now, and it's the Old English word god and feminine noun, refer to only the female goats, while males were called buka or got buka and so forth. So, and then you have billy goats and nanny goats and all of that, but that originally goat was a feminine noun. So we showed that, and we showed the etymological origin of the term and all of that. Now, so then we show the chart, and then we get into, like we said in the first piece, the great Ba, or ram. The word Ba means ram. In the north is Banabjedet. This is him. And the great ram in the south is Kunwimu, who we're about to check out. These two ram deities were later referenced as goats during the late period. And we give a quote. They said during the late period, Banabjedet was referred to as the goat of Mendes by the Greeks, who mispronounced the phrase Banabjedet and so forth. So the goat of Mendes, they tried to turn him into Baphomet, which is nonsense. And some of our people jumped on that Baphomet bandwagon, and they are misrepresenting, trying to say that has something to do with sacred science, which it doesn't. It's nonsense. So, and then you have Kunwimu, who is the husband of Neith, who we're going to talk about next week for Capricorn. This is one representing Capricorn, but we're going to touch on him today because they're husband and wife. He's depicted as a man with the flat horns of flat horn ram and so forth. Some Greek writers, ignorant of the older species, mistake the ram associated with Kunwimu, Banabjedet, and the deity Herishef as a goat. Now, in the zodiac, Sagittarius comes before Capricorn. As we can see in the chart, she's the great archer. Here are her three different forms. She's the great mother, elderess. She's the weaver. She's the archeress with the bows and arrows and so forth. We just read about her being that defender of the king and everything else. She's the great archeress, warrioress, but also divine weaver, weaver of ethereal matter. She is thus shown with the bow and arrow, or a shuttle for weaving, and the headdress. This is the temple in Esna. We just read a portion of a text from the walls of this temple, and we were reading about Neit and all her functions and so forth. So Neit and Kunwemu corrupted into a goat. He's really around, but he's corrupted into a goat. Neit, you know, is the feminine version, but the goat is originally a feminine noun. Now, why is that related? Neit and Kunum, as husband and wife, are the female and male aspects of both Sagittarius and Capricorn. Sagittarius is Neit, the great archeress, but the masculine side is her husband, Kunwemu. Capricorn is the great male ram, they misnomer the goat, but on the feminine side of Capricorn is Neit. They are husband and wife. Just like Hapi is Aquarius and Merit, the female deity of the Nile River, is the feminine side of that, the river and so forth aspect. They are husband and wife, Hapi and Merit. Well, Neit and Kunwemu are husband and wife, and they govern Sagittarius and Capricorn on both ends. Now here's where the Whites and Offspring flipped. This is where it goes back to. They flipped Neit and later on into this masculine goat piece. Neit is the great mother warrioress. The Greeks called Neit Athena or Athene. And Athena is the, you know, little warrioress in the Greek tradition and all of that. Athena, when you reverse it, Athene, which is Neit and so forth, that's where they got it from. But this is what's important. In the graves of the oldest settlements at El Badari in Egypt, people were buried wrapped in goat skins. So we did have goats. We also had rams, sacred rams and so forth. But if you're in a region where rams are no longer existing, then they're related species as the goat and so forth. So we would invoke them as animal totems as well. In the oldest settlements at El Badari in Egypt, people were buried wrapped in goat skins. In pre-dynastic Egypt, Adam describes this form of burial from the El Badari period. And this is like, you know, pre-dynastic, 6,000 plus BCE and so forth. During the Badarian period, graves were oval or circular, and the bodies were often wrapped in goat skins or mats. This form of interment was a ritual gesture to favor the goddess Neit. Goat skins were also worn by Libyan, meaning North African women, who covered their clothing with bare goat skins, adorned with fringe and dyed red by madder. These aprons, called aegis, were also called Amalthea, after the goat that once fed Zeus. So this is by the time, so the sacred origin of Neit, they're talking about in quote unquote Libya, that's west of Kamit. These are the northern Nubians, western Nubians and so forth, west of Kamit. Then you have the people living south of Kamit in today's Sudan, quote unquote Nubia, Nubi. Those are the southern Nubians. The ones west of Kamit in the so-called Western Desert in Libya, these are the Western Nubians. That's North Africa, North Africa. When the Greeks came across the Waj or the Mediterranean Sea, they came into North Africa and they came in contact of the region that was called Kanu in the past, or Kahnu. Later, it was called Rebu, and later Lebu and Libya. So they came in contact with Libya. This is a major region, sacred sanctuary and place of Neit, the sacred northern shrine, temple, city of Neit is Saud, that the Greeks call Sais. That's in northern Kamit, North Africa. They came in contact with the great mother Neith's shrines in Saud and so-called Libya, and they started seeing Neith and they started calling her Athena and so forth. But early burials, people were wrapping goat skins. This was a ritual gesture to the goddess Neith and so forth. the goat skins. Now, the Aegis was originally a protective goat skin shield carried by Zeus and Athena. Of course, they stole that from our people. Now, in this text, they'll say, it appears that the Egyptians, Greeks, and Romans jointly worshiped the same goddess that inhabited an island in Lake Triton. The names of this goddess were respectively Neit, Pallas, Athena, and Minerva, and she was identified with the primeval ocean, the primeval water, the ethereal water, and so forth. The wave energy within the water is Neit, and Lake Triton is in the region of Libya and so forth. So they came in contact with our people. They started changing things around, just like they turned Isis, Set into Isis and made her white and all this other stuff. They took Neit and turned her into a white, and Athena and everything else. But the key is Neit was that primordial divinity. She had shrines in northern Kamit as well as south. It was ancient practice to wrap them in goat skins, the people in goat skins, that had to do with Neit as a warrioress. Now, and then the birth of Athene. Now you're going into how Neit, they start changing the mythology a little bit to move her into representing the goat, and eventually they're going to take the female and turn it into a male, and then you have this centaur, who's an archeress and a healer. According to the Pelasgians, the goddess Athene was born beside Lake Tritonus or Triton in Libya, where she was found and nurtured by 3 nymphs of Libya who dress in goat skins. As a girl, she killed her playmate Pallas by accident when they were engaged in friendly combat with spear and shield. In a token of grief, set Pallas's name before her own. Coming to Greece by way of Crete, she lived first in the city of Athenae by the Boeotian River Triton. So they're like, she was born in Libya, that's North Africa, according to the Pelasgians who were dealing with the Greeks and so forth. They're like, this goddess came from North Africa, near Lake Triton, in the region of the Western Nubians, the Western Ethiopians, and so forth. And then she came into Greece by way of Crete. They're talking about people bringing shrines and some people migrating and so forth. And the city of Athena and so forth. Now, Plato identified Athene, patroness of Athens, with the Libyan goddess Neit, who belonged to an epoch when fatherhood was not recognized. Neit had a temple at Sais, that's in northern Kamit, where Solon was treated well merely because he was an Athenian. Of course, now they're talking about their own, these fictional characters, Greek so-called philosophers and so forth. But the key is the Greeks were recognizing that Neit is the origin of Athena. Virgin priestesses of Neit engaged annually in armed combat, apparently for the position of high priestess. And then they talk about a few things with regard to that. So the key with regards to this whole process is virgin priestesses of Neit engaged in annual armed combat for the position of high priestess. The Ethiopian, meaning Libyan, African women and girls, were wrapped in goat skins and so forth for ritual, just as their ancestresses and ancestors were wrapped in goat skins for burial. Now, we were talking about those different things, and then we look at the husband of Neit, which is Kunwimu. And let's switch back over. So that's that information there. We said the wave energy within the fluid. Now let's look at the biological foundation of that, and then we'll really understand who this divinity actually is and where she shows up in the physical body.